to participating, and then really the researchers sort of take it from there, interview people in the community, send out questionnaires, wrap together the findings, and then present things back to the community. So we're looking forward to that very much.
How many other towns have done that, do you know?
I don't know the figure across the state as a whole, but on Cape Cod, I think it's less than 5 that have done the needs assessments on Cape Cod. Yeah, it's like 4 or 5.
Important. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the person online who had something, is it Kara? Oh, I can't see.
Yes.
Hi, Kara.
Director of Cultural Affairs, Kara Mawini. Just wanted to give our March update. We did launch our first digital newsletter on March 1st, so we shared it via our socials, along with both websites through the cultural districts and the 204. We have added links kind of here, there, and everywhere, sending it out to our email subscribers, in addition to those that have signed up through our social media campaign that we did in the fall. It really pretty much held kind of what's happened and then where we're going and what's kind of going on right now. So we do have a lot of classes that take place on a weekly basis. First and foremost, the Recreation Department still has their programming pretty much 7 days a week. We also work with the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group through the administration office, where they provide various classes and programs for folks through that service. And we also have 2 artists in Studio 211 that offer quilting and rug braiding classes. Stitchology Sewing School for Kids is consistently going with classes. They'll be seeking summer programs very shortly, so that'll be set to launch and be announced for the summer Stitchology class. We do a portrait drop-in group with our artist Taylor Fox. That's for anyone who's willing to come in, and it's a live model that sits for the class, and you can just paint your portrait or whatever your medium is, whether it's paint, oil, watercolor, or sketch. And then we have a journal workshop coming up with Natalie Stafford, and that's launching next week. It'll begin, it's 4 sessions. You get to sit with Natalie and learn how to have an art journal. Further information on all of our classes and programs can be found at 204sisson.com. We do try to now, with our digital newsletter and our socials, we put everything out there, and we've been watching kind of the behind the scenes as far as monitoring how many people are clicking, what people are looking at, really to engage our audience moving forward. And then beyond that, we do have some very special programs for March coming up on this Friday. We have our new gallery opening, which is featuring Sedona Summer and our art stars. We have an opening reception March 8th, Friday, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. On Saturday, March 9th, we're hosting Punch for Parkinson's fundraiser. They have a trivia night from 6 to 9 p.m. Tickets will be sold at the door with the group that's hosting the event, so you're welcome to just show up and come have some trivia fun and raise money for a great cause. And then we are welcoming the New England Society of Botanical Artists for their weekend retreat that they're going to be holding with us. This is actually all across the state of Massachusetts. Artists come together for an annual retreat, and I am so fortunate enough that they were able to choose Harwich. And that's going to be held from March 15th through the 17th. On March 16th, we welcome an educational forum presentation by Prince and Reletta Ray, and I hope I'm saying their name right, but they're doing an educational forum on the Gold Farm School, which is in Africa, and it's a whole cultural exchange program that's taking place with the community members, and we're very happy to have them choose the 204 for their choice venue. Additionally, on some cultural district updates, I'm pleased to say that we have had our first initial kickoff meeting with the Monomoy graphic design students, who is going to be, or who they are currently designing the future logo of the Harwich Cultural District. So it'll be a representation logo between both cultural districts, showing that there's a bridge within Harwich, inclusive of all of the community programming and all of the community engagement sessions. So we actually provided the students through a sales pitch meeting all of the research and development that have taken place stretching back from 2018, all of the records that we're able to find for what people had said about Harwich and the cultural districts and so forth. So we provided that information to the students. And by May, we will have an unveiling of a new logo, which will be designed by our Monomoy students. Next, we have the unveiling of our Art Week. I'm very pleased to announce that we will be holding Harwich Art Week from April 27th through May 5th. And this year's theme of our programming is creative exploration. These flyers have started to hit the streets. More are going to be going out as we kind of redefine and fine tune the marketing. But we start with our Prelude event on April 20th with Harwich Climate Action Network, where they celebrate Earth Day. And then we will be kicking off officially Art Week on April 27th with the Health and Conservation, Environment, and Wellness Fair. From there, we have various events going from a thrift and flea market, coffee and connect with creatives. We're holding a workshop for all creatives out there. So if you're interested in learning how to run a business as a creative, it's a partnership that we do with CDP of Cape Cod. Then we have our Pioneer Day of May 1st as the Hump Week, and we're going to be doing a Explore, Shop, and Create, where we're going to be hosting a scavenger hunt amongst various locations within town that people can partake, and then they'll win a prize. We have an open mic with Cape Cod Poetry. We'll have an abstract gallery opening, our big spring market and open house, and then ending our art week with a community paint-along. Most, if not all of these programs will be free to the public, and further information and more definition about these programs will be announced in our April newsletter as we fine-tune some further information, but that is our goal for all of our events. In addition, I have been able to secure all of our summer concerts at Brooks Park. So Harwich Center Cultural District will be hosting Monday nights at Brooks Park again from July 1st through August 19th. And to give a teaser of all of our musicians that we're able to secure this year, we have Juke and Jay and the Rockers, Fred Clayton and Friends, Heyday, Rackline, Moselle, Natalia Bonfini, Monica Rizzo, and Super Soulshine. So again, that is completely funded by the Harwich Center Cultural District through the Mass Cultural Council's Cultural District Investment Grants. We're very happy to be able to provide that concert again. They all will take place 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Brooks Park, right at the gazebo, free. Just bring a blanket, a chair, and enjoy some free music. Have a good time. And lastly, we do encourage people to continue to check the website and our social media, and please check in on our digital newsletter. We do like to track and monitor and engage with people from a variety of places so we can see who it is that we're doing, so we can give those metrics back to the Massachusetts Cultural Council.
Wow.
And I thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a lot of activities, so thank you very much, Karen. One question.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Do you distribute any of the newsletters over to the community center? I'm just thinking out loud in terms of a good place to advertise.
Yeah, so great question. We have not yet, and the sole purpose of that is we have had program meetings, and this is something internally that's kind of been worked on, is how we present information to the public. So I think further will come from that, but that is still in early development talks of how we can have this mass amount of information between all of us within the town departments really being put out into the public.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment and announcement? No? Oh,
Just,
yeah,
oh, sorry, Joe.
Just a reminder that the community forum this Thursday, March 7th at 7 p.m. The community center, and this is about the Phase 3 construction. Again, it's open to the entire community. The focus, of course, will be on the next 2 construction projects in East Harwich. So again, Thursday, March 7th, 7 p.m., and there is a Teams link online as well if you can't make it in person.
thank you, Joe. Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and despite the low numbers from the last 2 events, I'm going to stick with it. We're going to have office hours next Wednesday night, the 13th, at the Community Center from 5:30 to 7 in room 3. And I believe Select Board Member McCaskill will be joining me. So please, anything you want to get off your chest, come on in and have a conversation. And it's nice to see Brewster is following suit now. Found that out this week. So,
Interesting.
Yeah,
See that?
trendsetters we are. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And actually, you reminded me in terms of making another public announcement that we are going to hold our board meeting on March, instead of March 18th, it will be on the 19th on Tuesday. So I'm just putting that out there a couple weeks ahead of time. And that's it. So no one else for public comment and announcement. We can go on to the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the Select Board meeting minutes for February 26th.
Hold them.
Oh, we're going to hold that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so-
we are going to hold.
Yeah, there's a bunch of us that want to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to hold those, and everybody can send their revisions in.
Perfect.
And then we'll bring them back on Monday. But then we'll move on to our public hearing. So if you want to,
Notice of public hearing, Town of Harwich Select Board applicant for transfer of liquor license. Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws as amended that the application has been made to this board for a transfer of the annual on-premise all alcoholic license now held by Morningstar Restaurant, Inc., DBA Villa Roma at 278 Route 28, Harwich, Mass. 02646. Douglas Morrissey, manager, to Milano Hospitality Group, LLC, DBA Milano's Italian Kitchen, 278 Route 28, Harwich, Mass. Francis Wyasek Jr., manager, on the following described premise located at 278 Route 28, Harwich, Mass. Building consists of 3 rooms for food and beverage service internally, as well as an outdoor patio for seasonal service. Patio seating in lieu of indoor seating. Total capacity not to exceed 51 seats. Liquor will be stored in a locked office on the 2nd floor. The Select Board will hold a public hearing on this application Monday, March 4th, 2024, no earlier than 6 p.m. in the Griffin Room at Town Hall, Harwich Town Hall, at 732 Main Street, Harwich, Mass. 02645. Remote participation is also available. Please see the posted agenda for dial-in information.
Move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
moved and seconded. So the public hearing is open, and we would invite you to, if you want to come to the table. Or the podium, whatever
way.
you, whichever you're comfortable with.
See, you brought your bartenders.
I did, yeah. My muscle.
Your muscle.
So welcome.
Thank you. He's got your notes.
Love it.
So this is exciting to hear, and
Yeah.
so just, I don't have any specific questions, and then do you have any questions? Jeff, do you have
I
any
have no questions, just excited.
Don?
Keep it going.
Yeah,
It's exciting that it's not going to close for a period of time.
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's such a great spot, so I think we don't want to hold you up anymore. You've been very patient.
No problem.
Well, can I
And
have
so-
one thing? if
Yeah,
I may?
no, go ahead.
I believe you've also applied for 2 committee positions as well in
Yeah,
this
I
town.
think my interview's Wednesday morning.
Golf and capital outlay?
Yeah,
Fantastic, Frank, thank you.
no problem. We're here to give back.
Yep.
While we're at that public portion, I'll just note that the police report had no objections to the
Right.
transfer of the license at all.
That's great.
We have no issue with the transfer, and I'll just ask the public if anyone has anything to say. It is a public hearing, but we're excited for you.
Thank you.
The whole chamber's coming.
I just, as the director of the chamber, I just want to welcome you all. I think this is great. We're super excited and can't wait to see when he starts work.
It'll be soon, believe me.
Madam Chair, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
So, let's just go ahead, Michael.
All right. I move that we approve the transfer of the Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 12, annual all alcohol liquor license held by Morningstar Restaurant, Inc., DBA Villa Roma, manager Douglas Morrissey, 278 Route 28, to Milano Hospitality Group, Inc., DBA Milano's Italian Kitchen, manager Francis Wyasek Jr.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I would just, I think Mr. Morrissey is in the room tonight. Thank him for, how many, is he not here tonight? I thought that was him in the back. No. Definitely
He's in
thank him
Florida.
for his many, many, many years in Harwich and an excellent restaurant.
You may still be
And
involved.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thanks, everybody.
Look forward to
Excellent.
it. It's one of my
May you
favorite
prosper and
spots.
be here for a long time.
Oh, let's hope so.
You got it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Too.
So on to our next, oh no, our public hearing is being postponed till another, 2 weeks?
March
So-
11th.
Is it March 11th? Yeah, to March 11th, so next week. Okay, so now we will go to our joint meeting with the Select Board and the Bylaw Charter Review Committee. There you go.
Thank you.
Evening.
Good evening.
How are you? If you want to say your,
Call to order the meeting of the Bylaw Charter Review Committee for, at 6:23 PM.
so I guess the best way, we have different materials. We have your report, and we have our other item on the HR position as well. So I'm going to open it up to board members with any specific questions for Linda, Anita, or Sandy. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
if I may. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for being here. I just want to mention again the great work you as a committee have all done. And Linda, specifically, you and I met on Friday and neatened this up so that this could potentially be a more efficient meeting where we get some things done. I purposely didn't hand these out to the board members or any of you prior to this meeting because I wanted to make sure that we all understand this is happening in real time.
Thank
2,
you.
3. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Joe.
It's the same one.
So, essentially, all this is just going to make it a little easier for everybody at the table to follow along. So I will turn it back over, Madam Chair, to you, and then let the rest of the board members have their say before I begin to get rolling here, if I may.
I'm just looking at this.
Yeah, of course.
In comparison to the other information we had,
Mhm.
so. If anyone else has any specific question, feel free to let me know. I'm just reading through. Because it looks like the 231, which obviously is not controversial, and it's the whole, going back to the annual election of town offices shall be called under Clause 811 of Chapter 8. So when I'm going through these, I went through a couple other ones too, so I'm going to jump down actually to 353. Or it's the select board chair shall have the authority to designate from time to time one or more of its members to sign warrants for the payment of town funds in the absence of the town administrator. As referenced in clause 461, the town treasurer shall be notified by the chair of this designation. So I guess my question there is, the other report then showed the proposed new language underneath it on, this was your older report that I have. And then it looked like it was saying, and I'm only asking because I was going back and forth looking, and I'm like, I think the only difference in that, in what the current and the proposed, was to say, the select board chair shall have the authority to designate from time to time one or more of its members to sign warrants. Is that the only difference in?
Well, the other differences are, the current wording includes the designation shall be by a majority of the board at a
Right.
called meeting. So we're trying
Trying to just
doesn't-
give the chair or
Yes.
somebody else, one of the other
Right,
board
so
members,
that
the
the chair
ability.
can delegate the signing in the absence of the town administrator to sign a warrant, so that you can designate someone. And in the original, this written copy of this vote, which is what is in the current, gets filed all over the place. And so we're proposing that you be given, the chair be given the authority to designate someone. And this basically just tell the town treasurer that this is what is happening. It's a housekeeping issue.
Okay. I was just looking between this one and then I'm looking at this one and I'm just trying to make sense.
That's all right.
And that's what I tried to do, is just clean it up a little bit
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other questions they want to go over? I'm still reading. Oh, yeah, so, sorry. go ahead.
Oh, yeah?
It might be a good idea to take the first section,
Sequence.
non-controversial
Yes, yes.
first,
Yeah,
That is, Jeff and I, when we met, we said, okay, these should be the no-brainers. These are the ones that need a decision for this May, and there are ones that really need much more discussion.
Discussion, right.
So hold.
So may I make a motion, Madam?
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me.
I move that the following charter changes be included in the May 2024 annual town meeting warrant. 231, the annual election of town offices shall be called under Clause 811 of Chapter 8. The annual town meeting shall meet regularly in the first week of May to consider and adopt annual operating and capital budgets and to act on financial and other matters. The meeting shall be continued on other days until all articles in the warrant have been acted upon. As well as 353, the Select Board Chair shall have the authority to designate from time to time one or more of its members to sign warrants for the payment of town funds in the absence of the town administrator, as referenced in Clause 461. Town treasurer shall be notified by the chair of this designation. 432I, change would be in the second line, water department to water/wastewater department. And 443, the town administrator shall appoint the harbor master and any assistant harbor masters. Reason, town administrator has authority to do this under 441 and 442.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, I think that the 443 should have been, I would suggest, was remove that line.
Oh, because it's duplicative?
Well, because in the town administrator's authorities, the town administrator appoints the various department heads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there is a separate line that says, the town administrator shall appoint the harbor master. Well, if he appoints everybody else, why are you pulling one out? So I think our report, as we were talking,
Okay,
there was a
sure,
lot going
sure.
on.
So you want to remove your second? Let me,
Actually,
just-
I have a question.
okay.
Go ahead.
As it sits right now, Linda, does that authority, is it expressed and any assistant harbor masters, or is it just the harbor master?
Just the harbor master.
Because we may want to,
But then again, respectfully, if the town administrator is supposed to be appointing all these people, there's no need to appoint, we don't think there's a need to say, and he gets to appoint this one too. He's appointing all of them in his authorities.
okay, if you're okay with it being implicit with his other duties, that's okay with me. I'll remove my second.
It was put in 2014, it really isn't needed.
Was there any, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Remove was part of your motion, right, Jeff?
Yeah, the removal of the town administrator.
That's the second that I was
That was
thinking
part
of
of the
doing,
second.
yeah.
So it's the removal of 443.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. So now-
4-0, Madam Chair.
4-0,
Thank you.
sorry.
Make a motion on this one, and then we can go into discussion.
Yeah,
I move that the following bylaw change be included in the May 2024 annual town meeting warrant. 271-16, votes of the Select Board and Finance Committee establishing recommendations regarding town meeting articles shall be printed in the warrant with each individual's recorded vote.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I think we're just doing it by numbers now, aren't
So,
No.
we? Now.
Well, the town meeting Article 55 of May 2019 annual town meeting passed that rather than saying the select board vote is 5-0-3-2, had to have individuals' names in them. This cleans up the the bylaw language, which was never changed.
Got it.
So this is housekeeping.
my only question on that, though, so I understand what you're doing, but can we change that bylaw without any kind of,
It's derivative of the charter, so, yeah.
I just want to make sure we don't step out of line on anything. So as long as we're in accordance with the process, then I'm fine with it. I just want to make sure. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 You want to go to the next
Yep,
one?
I move that the following charter changes be included in the May 2024 annual meeting town warrant, Chapter 3-7-1. include the language that the human resource position will report to both the select board and the town administrator. In chapter 3-6-1, add to the list of appointments made by the select board the position of human resource.
Second.
So, in terms of going forward with this charter change, weren't we talking about doing this in the fall?
That's,
Because the timing, we wouldn't have, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I wondered that myself, but I mean, I don't see any harm, I'm not sure what you guys feel, I don't see any harm establishing a process before we actually establish the position and fund it.
And we were asked by the Select Board to work up the language, which we did in a memo to you with those charter change languages.
That's what I'm saying, it doesn't harm anything, because you gotta
Nope.
wait until next year for it to go through the ballot anyway.
Absolutely. So, I mean, if you want to hold it to a fall town meeting, you won't lose any time because it still has to go through the May 2025 ballot,
Right.
regardless of whether it's the May 2024 town meeting or a fall 24 town meeting. So you don't lose time by making that decision.
Right, so moving it to the fall town meeting loses nothing in
No-
the sense of the whole process of what we have to go through. Don?
The only thing I'll point out, it's a practical thing, it's something I think everybody in this room has seen before. If we give people the inclination that there's movement and that we're working towards the human resources person, that's a discussion that doesn't have to happen, because I swear if there's nothing in this warrant about that, we're gonna waste a lot of time explaining it's gonna be in the fall meeting and have everybody debating whether they wanted it now or later. We're not establishing the position because we don't have the position description, and we don't have the appropriation. But it'd be nice to just say, we're establishing the process, and this is how it's gonna work.
I would also say that if you do fund it and it passes town meeting, you will be hiring someone who will have the upfront understanding that there is a change coming, rather than hire someone and then change on them. I think it makes more sense to set the process up so you hire somebody that actually knows what is coming down the pike and can fairly assess whether or not they want the job or not.
Thank you, Linda. Michael, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just comment that if we can get some of this done on an annual, I don't see why we would wait. So if some of this work can be done, we may as well do it. Yeah, you know, unless there's no time to do it. But I say we should tackle some of them now.
Okay, so did we have a motion?
I made the motion.
I second it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0, Joe.
I move that the following charter changes be included in the May 2024 annual meeting town warrant. Chapter 2-2-2, warrants will be mailed to all households.
Second.
Who second?
Dawn, second. Moved and seconded. Discussion, Michael?
We've only had one conversation about this that the public's been aware of. We have no cost associated with this, so this is a bit premature in my mind.
Thank
I
you.
think that we discussed other avenues on distribution, and this would be one more thing, in my opinion, that 70% of the people throw in the trash with the rest of their junk mail. They could be distributed a lot better around town hall, community center, website, any number of places if we get a timeline that works so that we can get them out there quicker. But mailing them to every household, for me, I think is a waste of town money.
Jeff?
Yeah, I would say that until there's a cost associated with it, I don't, or more public hearings, meetings on this, I don't think it needs to be in this May 2024 meeting. I think there are other avenues to get people's hands on it.
Don?
I was just coughing.
Oh, I didn't know if you wanted to say something.
I could go either way, but I mean, I get Michael's point. We've had a discussion last week or two. We're so far behind in so many things that it's kind of difficult to believe that we'll be able to have these kinds of discussions for all of these, all the other warrant articles and everything else before the May meeting. I mean, that's kind of why we're talking about a fall meeting, because it's just, we're up against it.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of mailing it to households. I think it's an added expense at a point where, you know, there's plenty of things we need to spend money on. I feel like they are all over the different town buildings, they're on the website, it's easily accessible in that sense, and, you know, for those people who aren't computer, and I myself don't like to read things on the computer all the time. I like a hard copy, but I can go to town hall and I can get it, I can go to the community center, so that's my rationale for it. Don?
It's not an argument, I'm just coming out and saying, because the timing is exactly at the same place, we are obligated to send out the ballot by mail. So if we're mailing, I mean, now you're talking about an increment, you're not talking about the responsibility of mailing. You have to send, legal counsel told us that we had to. So something's got to be mailed already around the exact same time.
But it's not as large as the warrant.
Yeah, I'm just pointing it out. We're not going to do anything tonight about it.
Madam Chair, some of these motions are to get a decision made, thumb up or thumb down. And so if that's the decision of the board, we're okay with that, because it is your decision.
Okay. Next one, Jeff?
So we haven't voted on that.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I withdrew the second. I mean, I suggest that we just wait until the fall meeting, because we're not in a position to do any of this right
So we
now.
don't need to vote.
A motion but no second, so it's
Yeah.
not moved.
So I think, to Linda's point, they're trying to get a gauge on what thumbs up and thumbs down is.
Well, then we should go to a negative, so we'll go backwards.
So basically, it's
So
anyone
someone
in
want to
favor
make
is
a...
an aye, anyone that
Right.
else is a no, and it does not carry, and then they'll have the
All
message.
right, let's just go to that. So,
It's more than anything because we did this report, so the committee is wanting to kind of close
yeah,
the discussion on certain topics.
sure. Okay, so,
I move that the following charter change be included in the May 2024 annual meeting town warrant. Chapter 2-2-2, warrants will be mailed to all households.
I'll second it, but I have a different
Right.
purpose than Michael. I was, in seconding it, I'm going to just say, I'd like to get some public sentiment on it, and not to just kill it off entirely, is that ultimately, I'm curious about how many other towns, not just on the Cape, but how many other towns, period, mail out these things to the public in their towns, in whether or not we've actually reached out to the public and asked them how they felt about, whether that's an improvement or it's just a cost.
Jeff?
Thank you. So for the purpose of what I'm sorry, did you?
Just here again, if we have a discussion about this over the summer, this could go into a fall town meeting. Nothing is lost.
Right, so, but you
Yeah.
want us to take a, you want us
For-
to
for
take a
this
vote to
town
just
meeting.
For this
clean it
town
up.
meeting,
Right,
just kind
So-
of make some decisions for this town
Right.
meeting.
So,
And that's exactly what I was going to say. We don't lose anything, and we can bring it back. So there was my motion. I believe you seconded it
okay,
reluctantly.
so,
Reluctantly.
all in favor? I'm in, nothing. So anybody in favor? Okay, so
In the spirit of what you
Zero.
said, it's 0-4.
0-4, yeah.
I move that the following charter change be included in the May 2024 annual meeting town warrant. Chapter 2-8-1, that all new positions, additions to staff, and changes from part-time to full-time be included in the town meeting warrant as separate articles.
I'll second it, but it's the same discussion. I would like to have a public discussion about this. I'm not sure that the whole board feels the same way, but which can't be done for this. It's just not enough time.
Okay, Michael?
We've had extensive public discussion on this. Matter of fact, the board has voted, with the exception of one new member, no on this before. It's micromanaging the town administrator, and there was a push by a few at last budget cycle where I believe we had 9 new positions go to town meeting. It was driven, I believe, by a few individuals, and Finance Committee supported it, and a few on there, so there was extensive conversation. And then not one question on town meeting floor the first night on 9 new positions. We hire a town administrator to do a job. This falls in the purview of his job or her job, whomever
Right.
sits in the seat. and we should not be micromanaging the town administrator on that level at all. The mechanism at town meeting is a very simple amendment to the budget. So somebody could call that out if they don't agree with a new position. But we
Right.
should not be taking that right away from our town administrator.
Agreed. So you've got you made the motion.
Made the motion.
And I guess my other point is that we're going to have a new member soon, and that's a discussion we can have again. But I'm going to vote with you guys to not do it because it's not going to happen for this town meeting.
Okay, so you seconded it, right?
Yeah, we're
All-
going to do the same strange
Right,
thing.
all in favor? 0-4, Joe.
I move that the following general bylaw change be included in the May 2024 annual meeting town warrant, Chapter 7-2. Specify the reports / information to be included in the warrant and reported to town meeting. Proposed budget and anticipated receipts, capital plan, sources and uses of funds, statements of activity on all revolving funds, including balances for prior fiscal year and at the close of the previous calendar year.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Michael?
Joe, through you, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
what is not currently included? Because we have increased the documentation going to town meeting for the past few years. Is there something missing that's being asked, and if so?
Well, if I may, if this is the charter, Chapter 7 is appointed agencies. So that's committees. So sources and uses is not tied to a committee. But that is something the board could instruct to have in the warrant.
Bylaw, this is a bylaw, Chapter 7 Administration, not a charter.
Sorry, I thought I heard the member say a charter change.
I very well may have. Let me
No,
read
you
it
said
again.
bylaw.
Did I say bylaw?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I had to look myself, Joe.
Thank you, sorry, yep.
A mistake? No, okay.
So my question remains,
Yeah, go ahead.
what don't we give already?
I'm not clear on this.
I don't know that I can answer that. I would imagine, based on the list here, I don't know that we expressly identify budget and anticipated receipts directly. We do put them in tables in various articles. The capital plan is usually Appendix C. Sources and uses of funds, that's not an official term. That's a worksheet that we work off of every year, so that could be included, and then statement of activity. I think some format, I don't think I understand the question directly. Are you asking what's in there and what's not?
Yeah.
I believe capital plan is in there. I don't believe the others are expressly in there.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
The budget is in there, obviously. Receipts are not. There was a point, I know when I sat on the board, we did get a receipts schedule in the warrant to showing where the various pieces of the money is coming from to fund this $85 billion. And it disappeared. So there is, right at this point, there might be a receipt information here or there, but it's not we have this much of a budget, and here's where all the information, all the receipts are coming from on one page, which is effectively the sources and uses report. Or you can call it a worksheet, but the sources and uses could go in there, as could the detail, some level of detail on the receipts. So like there's $16 million worth of local receipts being planned for this budget or being proposed. The 10 line items for what those are, people don't know what they are. So I think there is information that could be put in the warrant that would be very helpful to the population to see where the money is coming from to fund all of these activities and expenses of the town. If it would be easier at this point to just put in the receipts and the sources and uses, because those are just one-pagers. You have all that information. Those are just adding 1 to 2 pages to the warrant and hold on the revolving funds for this town meeting warrant, because that could be That's more thought being put into presentation, et cetera, and hold that for next year.
Well,
Sorry.
I would just echo last comments. I believe this to be a board decision. I believe this to be, the information is available for the members of the public that want it. There's extensive discussion on budget going on now for the next month. None of this information is hidden, and I don't see why the board, and we've done this through the current town administrator over the past few years, we've added more and more to the information in the book. To put it in the charter, and I'm just gonna say it, I believe that there's members of the charter bylaw review that are doing this because of their opinion of the current town administrator, and I don't support this whatsoever.
And I take umbrage at that, Mr. McCaskill.
That's fine.
Stop that. I mean, we have to, these things are not being done because somebody has a bone to pick. We are doing things on an upward level, things that we think, and it's also not a charter change, it's a bylaw change. Because in the bylaw itself, Chapter 7.2, does already require expenditures have been made, bounds of appropriations, it's got a whole bunch of stuff in here for current report of financial condition. So I think that's saying that people can find it if they want to. Why not just put it out there in the warrant so people don't have to find it if they want to? I'll stop there.
And I would just say that if I may,
Yep.
I would just say that I believe you with what you just said. There's information out there, written, public, and a quest that contradicts what you just said, and I'll leave it at that.
Fine.
As far as it's there if they want it and they can find it. I cannot tell you over 9 years, maybe 5 times, probably from 3 of the same people, the people that have asked for that information. And I do believe that that would be a board discussion. Doesn't have to be a bylaw change, because that is micromanaging in the bylaw. That could be a board policy or a board vote without trying to add this to that document and have that information available. So as far as a bylaw change, all I'm saying is I don't support it, because I don't think it needs to be in that document.
Okay.
However, this board having the conversation and making it more readily available or adding it to the warrant is a different discussion.
Yep. And I'm perfectly happy with that decision. However, I do know that at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, I asked for what was in the $16 million of local receipts, and there was nothing anywhere, and it came out, I think, 2 weeks later. There's the 16 million, great. But that wasn't in the, so I did ask for that publicly, and eventually it did show up. So I'm not sure that this information is that readily available.
well, I would say,
So,
go ahead.
so if you don't, we proposed a bylaw change. If you would like to handle it on a different basis and still provide that information to the public, because this information, it's not just the board voting on a budget. It's the townspeople, the voters who live here and are paying taxes are voting on the budget. I would think that you would want as much information in their hot little hands as would be possible so they can make an educated and informed decision and support what you are putting forth.
Thank you, Linda. Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to disagree a little with Select Board Member McCaskill here, and I spent a lot of time with Linda and a lot of time on this, and I did not get the feeling that this was anything other than what I feel is the same thing that you and I feel the exact same way you do with respect to transparency, information, honesty, and all that. And I'm not suggesting Select Board McCaskill isn't trying to be those things. I just think we need to get away from some of the narrative and just deal with how I've been looking at this. I'm trying to sway everybody to look at it this way. Let's just be as transparent as possible. Let's give as much information as possible, This doesn't sound like a heavy lift. It sounds like a one-pager to me. I could be totally wrong, since this is my first time going through this. But I don't find this to be anything significant to even discuss. I think what we did is cleaned up what the ask was. If I may, Madam Chair, I think really what we're looking at is anticipated receipts and sources and uses funds. That's what we're now to. So I would be in favor of making it available everywhere we possibly can.
Michael?
I just
almost
want to
called
get,
you
I want to get it on the record, because Linda said it, and I believe Jeff just said it. Nowhere did I say we should hide this from the public.
No, I said you didn't
No,
say that.
nobody's saying
Nowhere did I
that.
say that it shouldn't be readily available to everybody that wants to see it. And then I would poll the room and ask how many times people have asked for this and not gotten it. And my real point here is, does it need to be a bylaw?
Right.
Or can it simply be a transparency exercise and a vote of the board for the town administrator and the finance department to put it forward? Does it need to be a bylaw? And if it does, maybe it'll, in the quest for a charter commission, maybe it'll get done then. I don't see how we're not giving it to the general public now. And the comments about it being late, or 2 weeks late, or whatever late, might I remind everybody that actually knows that's in this room, we have been a little behind in that division from lack of a treasurer. So, you asked for it, you got it. We still have 3 months before town meeting, roughly?
No, we have to,
There'll be a lot of time and a lot of distribution of numbers, and that's what we always do. So, there's no lack of transparency whatsoever unless people aren't paying attention to the many, many meetings that we're discussing this.
I think, Michael, that I think what we were trying to do as far as the bylaw was concerned is maybe give it a little bit more language to it. It wasn't like going to change really anything, just kind of adding a little more to it to help people more understand and be a little bit more transparent. Because we already have the bylaw there. It's just adding a little bit more language to it, that's all.
Thank you, Anita.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Don?
Let me start out by saying I don't think anybody's trying to hide anything. So let's get that off the table. On the other hand, the final statement is statements of activity on all revolving funds, including balances for the prior fiscal year and at the close of the previous calendar year. As you well know, I've been asking that forever. I can get summary numbers, but even we don't know how that got to the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So I'd be hugely in favor of a sheet of paper that just shows, because we got $1 million-something worth of revolving money going around out there. And it is not, as many people feel in their own organizations, their money. It's the town's money. And I'd love to be able to give them the same kind of level of detail we do in a regular budget. It's okay, you give us $750,000 and we're going to give you a police department that has this many people in it, and this is what we're spending stuff on. So I'm just going to personalize it. I don't know that I'm getting that information.
So I'm going to say that, to me, I don't see a need to expand on a bylaw. Knowing how many bylaws we have and adding more information to them, I think that overall, we give a budget, we give a capital plan, we have sources and uses, you know, and some of that information did come later, but even free cash has been later, than in other years. So, this is a process that we go through annually, and sometimes when we've had different changes and we've had, everybody knows every town's having a tough time with staff, trying to get new staff. So we're not immune to any of those things. I don't like to memorialize more and more in a bylaw when I think it can be covered in a policy. And I think when we're going to town meeting, when we're saying certainly certain people are more attuned, I would say yourselves included and us, are more attuned to all the different financials. I would say that there's a lot of people who aren't, right? And so, loading the warrant with all this excess information, we may love it, but I don't think it's necessary because we know where to get it. To everybody's point, nobody's hiding anything. Everything's in packets, public packets. We sat here Saturday talking about numbers and we're poring over them. Some of them for the first time that we're really delving into. So to have a bylaw and feel like we're even backed further into a process of trying to meet all these deadlines, it's difficult enough. So I just don't see the need for a bylaw to add more.
That having been said, this is the same category to me as everything else. We don't have enough time to be able
Yeah.
to deal with this for this meeting coming up, because it is, you have to print the warrant in about 3.5 weeks.
Would it be possible just to put the anticipated receipts in there? That is already existing information. And while I agree with you that this information is in packets, you know, you end up with a packet that has 300 pages in it. The average person isn't going to look through that. But getting the final numbers in the warrant, even for receipts, where does the money come from? I think would be an incredibly important thing to do, because it's not just for the people, the few people who might understand it. It's providing the information so that our public can educate themselves. And face it, an awful lot of us don't look that far for information, all of us included.
Well, if it's
So-
a Munis report, no one wants to
And-
look at it.
yeah, but see, I can read that.
Yeah, I see, you can read that.
Go ahead.
Michael? Sorry.
Just on the one point about the revolving funds
Yeah.
that Don brings up, it was probably 2 years ago, maybe 3, I still have the email, so I could pull it up. I put in a FOIA request asking about how this money was being spent. And the answer I got back from the finance department was, we don't have that information, which is obviously absurd. But I never got it. I don't know that anybody on this board has ever seen an accounting of what goes in and out of those revolving funds. And as Don says, there's over $1 million just floating around as kind of play money. So you might want to think about addressing that.
Michael?
Linda, thank you. You made a great argument. And it's something that I think that we should bring forward as a board to make a request and try and get that information into the warrant as much as we can. But I still do not believe that we need to add to a bylaw. But I hear you, and there's really no reason why we can't ask for that to be in the warrant or in addition to the warrant on a one-pager, as Jeff said. So I'm good with that. As far as the revolving funds go, Don, I gotta tell you, I've been on the same page with you for 6 years, maybe, 7 years on it.
Yep.
But 2 years ago, you and Dana DaCosta offered to dive into this and come back to the board with a comprehensive report on the revolving funds, and it was crickets. As far as the revolving funds go and FOIA requests and everything else, we get audited every year. The same processes for expenditures, which we all heard on Saturday again, the same process for revolving funds and passing through the finance department is like any and all other bills. Do we need to do some work on it? Total respect to Don, this is something that he's asked for 6 years. I say yes, but there's nothing going on with the revolving funds that doesn't comply with law. We wouldn't pass our audits, and the expenses wouldn't, those putting in, the finance director would not approve those requests.
Right.
So is there room for improvement? Sure.
I would suggest that the select board, Julie, you said a policy on what goes into the warrant and what information is provided. Might be a good idea for you all to think about that. There are a number of select board policies. Where is there a policy on what should be in the warrant? I understand we have a professional town administrator who's doing all this stuff, but again, there are no receipts in the warrant for the past several years. So I would strongly urge you to sometime this summer, because now isn't the time to do it, but sometime this summer, have a discussion. What should be in the warrant for information for the public? And I'm okay, Michael, with the not putting it in a bylaw, if that's the decision. But again, this was our proposal.
Thank you, Linda.
Don?
And I don't think that anybody's trying to hide anything.
Thank you.
Let me just say that.
Hello? Can I say something? Michael's correct. However, I might point out that that was before Mr. DaCosta bought a Winnebago and headed out of town. And we had a previous finance director. And in fairness, I believe that Kathleen and you and I had a conversation down in the lobby about late November. And I said, you're buried, there's no reason for me to sit with you, but I wanted to sit with you about revolving funds. Got it. But I'm just saying that this isn't about what's legal and illegal. This is about whether the public decides that they want to spend their money that way. Because it's not our money. I mean, whether it's fees or it's taxes, it's house money. It's somebody else's money.
I definitely never thought it was my money, just to be clear.
I just want to make it
Sandy.
really clear that at no time have I suggested that there's anything illegal going on
Right.
with the
No,
revolving funds.
no.
However, we don't know whether some of those expenditures would be more appropriate for an appropriation by town meeting instead of running through a revolving fund. We have really no idea as a community what the activity is inside those funds, and I think it would be helpful to know that.
That's what Dana and I were supposed to do.
I think that, back to the point of, we have financial audits, we have our finance director, we have, we have treasurer, collector. I mean, everybody's dotting the i's and crossing the t's to an exorbitant amount of paperwork. So now we're going to go back and say, and again, I know you're not saying that anyone's hiding anything, but to me, it's like another layer of more people checking when you're, so it does assume something, even if you don't mean it to assume something, right? It sounds like, okay, well, this department needs to be triple checked. And, I mean, we hire professionals for a reason, and certainly I hear you on, the budget and the backup documents, and that's why I think it's better. You might get a different board that wants to put in millions of things and build a bigger warrant. So, codifying it in a bylaw just doesn't make sense to me. So I think it is a larger discussion. I also think that we should look at other towns. We may be putting in more than other towns, or we may be putting in less. So let's look at that too. Not that we have to do it the way another town does it, but we could look for references. What does this town include? Are we doing that? Maybe, in some respects, we might be giving more in certain areas and not the other information you'd like to see. I'm open to the discussion, I just don't see it going in a bylaw. That's my opinion.
And
Sorry, go ahead,
I
please.
was just going to say that being a CPA and having done audits, I have a pretty good idea of what is looked at, the sampling that is done. An auditor, somebody coming in and auditing books and records is not looking at every single
No.
transaction.
Agreed.
So just so that the public understands that, yes, we have an audit here, but there is statistical sampling that happens, and they go through and they say, okay, I'm going to look at 50 items. And as long as they're all supported by documentation, they say, okay, that sampling says probably okay. The sampling that is done in the CPA world, if there are 50 items picked and 5 have problems, you expand the sample.
Right.
But in no way is an audit ever looking at every single piece of paper unless you are undergoing a specific forensic fraud audit.
Totally understand,
Did I
so
mention that
I.
we're
I just want to
have
say
a
that for the
background in
public.
some auditing
Yeah.
too, so I get it. And you're right. It depends on what the sampling, when you pull it, and what you're finding, so.
But
I
we're not
did it.
going to do it for this meeting.
No, so, yeah.
Let me just say one thing. I'm gonna backpedal as fast as I can on the transparency position I took, because I don't believe there's one person in this operation who is looking to be not transparent. I'll use the word information. And I'm a fan of information, and I don't care if it's a bylaw or if it's a policy. I'm open to the conversation, and I'm happy to have it, and I'm happy to vote on it, but I'm a fan of information. And I think the public, regardless of how thick it is, one more page isn't gonna make a big difference. I just would like to get it in there somehow, and if it's not the pleasure of the board to have a bylaw change, then let's have a bigger discussion on how to get it in there. So, fine, thank you,
We
Madam
have
Chair.
that when we have the time to have it, though.
Well, that's what he's saying.
That's what I just said.
So
Well, we can do it in
we
the
can
in the
vote on
summer.
it now.
Right,
But we're gonna vote on this now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
right, so we give them
So
direction.
we give them direction.
Right.
I move that the following general bylaw change be included, well, we already did this and we had a second.
You have a
You
second.
did, I was
So
just-
what we have to do is vote.
Now we have to vote.
Okay, all in favor? 0-4.
I move that the following,
Moves along.
I move that the following general bylaw change be included in the May 2024 annual meeting town warrant. Chapter 271-3, during legislative session of town meeting, the floor shall be occupied solely by registered voters, and it shall be the duty of the moderator to clear the floor of all non-voters. Non-voters shall be allowed to address the meeting at the discretion of the moderator. The moderator shall allow non-resident department head to speak on any article, the subject matter of which might affect that department or in response to a question from the floor. Let me say one thing before so Linda and I worked on this. Linda tidied it up a little bit, but I expanded back onto what you all did in the first place, because I think there could be a good discussion. I wanted Dawn, Michael, and Julie to have the opportunity to discuss what you all had put forward in the first place.
It's all seconded for discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, moved and seconded. Dawn, did you?
I think it's nice to actually address this. I mean, because Michael might be here forever himself. I mean, it would be nice to have a context for whoever it is the moderator is in 5 or 10 years. These are guardrails, and it seems perfectly reasonable. And we keep going through this. I mean, I have a word in mind, but I can't say it because everybody's going to get mad at me. Not here, but out there in TV land. It's just disappointing to have this discussion over and over. It's like, well, no, we're not going to let them talk. It's like, no,
so
come on.
embarrassing, yeah.
What does it hurt anybody to have somebody opine just because they live across the line in Brewster? But to actually clarify how this works in writing is fine with me.
I think we also, Jeff and I had talked about where it says both the current section and the proposed rewording both say non-resident department head. And it would seem to just say non-resident.
So, meaning don't get rid of department head and just say,
Well, just to expand it, because this right now says but just to clarify that a non-resident, any non-resident could speak at the discretion of the moderator.
So
Without the vote.
I have a different opinion on that.
Okay?
I am, as we talked about earlier, Michael might not be there forever,
He's leaving you.
he's leaving.
right?
He's leaving you as we speak.
Wait, is that, you adjourning yourself again?
He's had it.
Okay, so I feel that it would be a great idea to allow non-resident department heads to be able to speak when it's appropriate and germane
By right.
by right. I
Yes.
don't think a moderator or the public should have an opportunity to silence Dr. Carpenter,
Right.
for example. On the other hand,
Almost happened, though.
I feel that it should remain with the voters on the floor to determine whether or not a non-resident who has nothing other than a non-resident status, not a department head or anything to support our town's infrastructure, I don't think that should be a moderator's decision. I think that should stick with the voters.
So you're going back on what we just talked about on Friday. Have you rethought this?
No, that's where I've always stood.
Ah.
That's where I've always stood.
We didn't talk about that.
We
so,
didn't
okay.
get this far with it, but what you and I discussed was the moderator allowing a department head to speak, resident or non-resident. I think that should happen. But I think it's up to the voters, and I think it should remain in the voters' hands if a non-resident wants to talk about our school system, or a non-resident wants to talk about our open space. I don't think that should be a moderator's decision, whether it be this moderator or any future moderators. That's my position.
Michael?
I-
Oh,
and
yeah, sorry. I think Linda was going to say, were you going to respond to Jeff? Or,
No, I was just going to say, if that's true, then we wouldn't change the language, the current language at all.
okay, thank you. Michael?
And the one that stands out is Dr. Carpenter, when he got up to speak about the petition article, and basically the floor said no. And so I do think we have to clarify and let the moderator make the decision on department heads as it relates to the department for the town. I think that makes perfect sense. And we should be allowing that. A lot of our department heads aren't here. But if it affects conservation, Amy should be able to speak. And the floor shouldn't say no, because she lives in another town.
Right.
To Jeff's point on anybody, and having it be the moderator. We had 2 instances last year, and it's funny, one of the documents I got tonight,
Oh, yeah.
and the rationale was about the length of town meeting. We spend $80 million in 15 minutes, right? And then we will go on 4 minutes, okay. And then we will go on a petition article for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And we had one instance this year where somebody from Brewster, one of the quote-unquote experts in plastic, and somebody that may have worked in our school system but was fighting against the plastic ban. So if we really do care about the length of town meeting, we really should do the hourglass and the 5 minutes to speak. And we definitely shouldn't be letting people from other towns that are part of organizations speak on banning silverware, plastic silverware.
So when I look at this, though, I agree. So I don't think non-residents should be speaking on items that we're discussing at our town meeting. I do think that department heads should certainly be allowed to speak. They should, we pay them to speak. So I guess when I look at this, though, I'm trying to look at it in a different way, to simplify it in the sense that the moderator doesn't even have to be involved. They should, by right, have the ability to do that,
For department heads,
right? So like, the moderator shouldn't even have to make a decision on allowing a department head to speak. If summoned, they should be able to speak. So I'm going at it in a different way to sort of simplify it, to even take that out or codify it and, no, I don't mean take it out. I mean, codify it in some other way that, department heads should be able to speak. It doesn't matter that they're not town residents. So this, I understand what we're doing here, and I appreciate it, and I think it's a good idea, but I'm wondering if we can simplify it even more to say, automatically, department heads are allowed to speak. Doesn't matter what town they're from, as long as they're working for the town of Harwich. Don?
In support of what you just said, it doesn't say that right now, and we don't have time. So I think they understand where we're coming from, and we could vote on it, and it's got to change anyway to reflect what
Yeah,
Jeff has
some
said.
other, yeah.
And the timing. So
Go ahead,
Thank you,
Jeff.
Madam
we'd all
Chair.
like to do it by right.
Yeah, of course. And to your point, well done, because that's a totally different way of looking at it. But I believe that the beginning of it, the first sentence during the legislative session, that needs to stand,
Oh, yeah.
right? But I am in support of exactly what you just said, is the department heads should be able to speak, and non-voters shouldn't,
Yeah, so,
Unless we let them.
unless the voters let them.
right.
So we have a motion.
Yes.
Go ahead.
The only thing I was going to say is that it's the moderator's meeting.
Okay, so we have to leave it in that way.
I personally would leave it in there.
Okay.
Because it does once, with respect to the select board, once you get done with it then does become the moderator's meeting. It is
Okay.
his meeting, and it's his way of running it.
So leave it,
I would
leave it
leave
in
it.
there like that.
I-
Okay. I was
personally-
just trying to simplify
No,
it,
no,
but-
I more than understand, but out of respect for the position that the moderator has, I think I would just leave it.
Okay.
I would leave it.
So I have to ask, leave it the way it sits right now?
Leave it the way we've written it.
The way you've written it?
Yeah.
Right. With the-
Understood.
with-
Revision.
Right.
Right.
So
So,
leaving it the way we've written it, but leaving in the majority consent of the voters.
For all but department heads.
Right.
yeah.
Well, I think what we're proposing is duty of the moderator to clear the floor. Non-voters shall be allowed to address the meeting at the discretion of the moderator. We crossed out without majority consent, without a vote of town meeting, provided that the moderator shall allow a non-resident department head to speak on any article, blah, blah, blah. So you want to, I'm not sure I
Please.
understand.
No, go ahead. Add back in
So you
The
want
vote-
to keep the vote of town meeting floor?
vote of town meeting floor. That would be what I would suggest.
The meeting.
Which the last, when we did this, I mean, unfortunately, Dr. Carpenter, that was an unfortunate incident. But town meeting floor said no.
Yeah.
And they were overridden.
Right.
So,
That's where your language of department head or direct is, I believe,
By
needs to,
right, yeah.
by right, needs
Right.
to be in there.
But non-voters, and I think so too,
Non-voters at the discretion of the voters.
so you want it of the voters,
Would be
okay.
my,
Well,
my-
but to
Which
Linda's-
basically, you're leaving it unchanged from what is in the current charter.
That will make.
I mean, sorry, bylaw.
So just to be clear, we would leave that language, and then we would add the language of the moderator shall allow a non-resident department head to speak.
That's correct.
That would be the addition,
That would be
right?
Yeah, and the only thing you're changing is the moderator may allow, you're changing may to shall.
Shall.
Shall,
That is the only change,
Right.
right.
Yep. that's-
right? So it says,
But,
because the current language is just the moderator may allow a non-resident department head to speak, it's blah, blah, blah.
right,
It's really changing the word may to shall. That's the change.
To not put it to a public vote.
This is the department head ones.
Department heads.
but,
That's correct.
right.
And that's all.
That would be the change. So you may want to take your motion back, and that the only change is to make may to shall
Sure.
Okay,
for a bylaw change.
so Don, he has a follow-up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise to speak in favor of what Michael said earlier. I mean, even if I was the proponent of the petition article, increasingly, we're winding up with a one-size-fits-all, and a bunch of people go from town to town to town to town, and they all just start taking over the meeting based on the data set that they claim they have. Like I said, even if it was something I was arguing in favor of, it really is our town meeting, and our town meetings, people should have the right to be able to discuss what they want to do without being told, you don't understand, we've already done this in Brewster, we've already done this in Sandwich, and you better do it here.
Okay, so just to clarify, we're just going back to what we just all talked about. The language will stay the same except for your addition about the moderator, and you're going to change it to shall allow
May to
the
shall.
department heads. That's the only change.
Take it
That's the
slowly,
change.
get the shout.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
You?
Michael had.
That was your motion, wasn't it?
Yeah, if I may, to Anita's point, we should respect the position. We should clean this up and show it to Michael Ford and
Yes.
say, are you okay with this? And
Right.
then
Sure,
bring it back
good
for a
idea.
vote.
Definitely.
Thought, Michael.
Well, we should show him all of these anyway.
Yeah,
because-
sure.
Definitely the one that affects him.
Right.
You want to withdraw the motion entirely then, because I can withdraw the second?
Yeah, withdraw the second,
I'll withdraw it,
and I'll withdraw my motion. And I move
refer it.
that the following general bylaw change be included in the May 2024 annual meeting town warrant, Chapter 271-3. During the legislative session of town meeting, the floor shall be occupied solely by registered voters, and it shall be the duty of the moderator to clear the floor of all non-voters. Non-voters shall not address the meeting without majority consent thereof, provided, however, that the moderator shall allow a non-resident department head to speak on any article, the subject matter of which might affect the department or in response to a question from the floor.
And to further, to send the motion, send that
To refer it to the moderator.
And we will send this motion, if carried, to the moderator for approval,
For review.
for review and approval.
I'll second it.
So moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seconded. Don seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 So 4-0. And then this is hold for future discussion?
Yeah, I don't think we really need to go over these, but I just wanted to put them down for us to see. And in the interest of time, we can just bring these up at a later meeting, if that's okay with the committee.
Can I bring one thing up from here?
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Please don't trap us, because other towns have changed their charters to specify a finance meeting in May and a regular
Yeah, no.
zoning meeting. Right now, we call it as a special, as needed. Everything's supposed to be done in May, and if we start changing around with and diddling that, we are going to be obligated to hold a fall town meeting, even if we don't have anything to talk about. So I'm not really hugely in favor of calling two town meetings unless we need two town meetings.
And if I may, before we close, oh, sorry, go ahead, Linda.
Before we close, there is another topic to discuss, which is, thank you, Joe, for the memo on that there are 5 sections of the charter. A couple of years ago, we changed the name, the title, Board of Selectmen to Select Board. However, the article did not say, and it said in the article, where it says Board of Selectmen, it should say Select Board. There are places within the charter, there are 5 of them, that say Select Men. Well, the article did not state and change Select Men to Select Board Member. So if we want to clean that up, they've been unable to make those 5, and I looked at them, they all say, one says Office of the Selectmen, the other 4 say Selectmen. I think I'm right on that, Joe? So I'm going to ask that this get cleaned up. Plus, the bylaws were never changed. Through the bylaws, it says, still says Board of Selectmen. That article that was written, I believe, by town council completely omitted the bylaw reference. So now we have a charter that says Select Board, and we have a set of bylaws that say Board of Selectmen. So I don't think it would be that hard to write that for this town meeting, because it's a housekeeping. One's a housekeeping issue on the charter for those 5 sections, and they're clearly identified. And also make the change that is needed in the bylaws. I think when the article was not put forth as a bylaw change, I don't believe. It was a charter change, but it wasn't followed by a companion bylaw change.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am so disappointed because we were promised by legal counsel, there was software, everybody's done this before. All we do is just throw all this language in, it'll automatically convert it to gender-neutral language wherever it appeared. I mean, that was the intent of changing the name. And we were actually going to start saying, it appears here, 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 here. He said, don't worry about it, there's software that converts it. And then we have a vendor that we send these things to, and they vet it with their software. So I'm like disappointed that we've got 5 dangling references that still have a gender specified when we didn't want to do it that way.
So, and apparently, I guess, and the town clerk, according to this, has gone to town council. Yes, these are correct. They were missed in the original article, which means that if you put it in as an article to change these 5 little sections in the charter, then it has to go on the ballot next year, so it's another 2 years before this foolishness gets done. And also, the bylaws, though, can be changed immediately, once town meeting would make a vote. I strongly urge you to clean this up, because it's messy. It's untidy.
Right.
It's icky.
It's okay.
And it's unprofessional.
Spell that with an EY or an IE.
Quickly.
Yeah.
I'll ask town administrator, are there 2 citizens petitions that should be going to this committee shortly? That I'm not sure if there are or there aren't, but I'm asking.
I believe there's at least one that makes reference to governance. The documentation is presently available. However, we're working with council with articles that would be placed to make sure that the petitioners are comfortable with that language.
Okay, so a reasonable amount of time for them to expect that should be,
If they wanted to work off of the petition information that we have right now, I can certainly send that. Again, council's going through the effort, as they do every year, of creating the language to try to match petitioners. So it's whichever you prefer.
well, I'd turn that over to you, Madam Chair, and let you decide.
Well, as long as we all know that, they're working on it and some language could change depending on how the petitioners feel about council's recommendations. I don't think the rest of the board have any problem sending them over.
Is that okay with you guys?
And actually, town council may make some suggestion, but if the petitioners don't want to change it,
That's
they
what I'm
don't
saying.
get to change it.
That's what I said. If the petitioner accepts town council's recommendations, then there'll be changes. But if they want to leave it the way it is, then it'll be the way we send it over to you. But just knowing that, go back to, we've got to make sure you check before anything more, so.
So can that
Can
be
I-
sent over this week then, so give
Can
you
I,
something to do right
we have a
away?
meeting next week, so may I agenda review of bylaws, potential bylaws, whether they be by petition or by board? That I can put that on our agenda for next
Yeah,
week, which I have to file Thursday morning. I can do that? That's okay?
I take my directive from the
I
board.
don't think that's a
My
problem.
understanding of the various votes you took tonight, articles will have to be created. I know we have language there, but they're not presently in article form.
Well, and
There are
also,
of the petition articles, there are bylaw petition articles that should be sent to us.
But also, didn't we also owe you the answer on the 5 bylaw?
Yes.
We owe you that answer. So before we go to the next one, let's give an answer on that.
I'm just suggesting that we send whatever we can, like right now. If there's one petition article
No,
that's
I'm not
ready to
talking about the
go.
petition articles, though. I'm talking about the 5 that Linda has made clear that, we have a
The
disconnect
goofiness
there,
ones,
so.
I would look to the town administrator. If we can get it done, then
Yeah.
I certainly would support that.
I think what I believe the bylaw charter review committee was making reference to is your new business item E.
Oh, sorry.
Is that correct?
Oh, is that what item E is?
The
Today?
5 items noticed by the codifier and the clerk?
Oh, this,
Yeah, and it just said discussion on need for charter article. That was this?
Correct.
Ah,
Okay.
okay, thank
All
you.
right.
No,
Well, then we'll talk about it when we get there.
it was not clear to me.
Tell the Uber to
So
wait.
that's clearing up the 5 items. Okay. And then we'll send the petition articles over with the understanding that they may change depending on how the petitioners feel. Okay. And that's it. And then you want to close your meeting?
We good? Motion to close our
So moved.
second? All's in favor?
Aye.
So, 7:29.
And anybody who votes no can stay here.
Anybody who votes no can stay here. Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate the opportunity together to move things through and get stuff done.
Thank you. Appreciate your work. New business.
Okay.
Yep.
I move that we approve the appointment of Andrea Ackridge as the interim treasurer collector per Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 40.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, if
Yeah.
I could. First, this is going to tie
Oh,
to a
right, yeah.
contract that I'll be announcing under Town Administrator's Report. This was mentioned during your budget workshop at the Finance Committee. And I would just ask if you're willing to correct my scrivener's error by having the motion refer to a temporary treasurer collector, because that's the language in the statute.
That was my second.
I believe my motion mentioned temporary instead of interim.
And then specifically, if you could indicate effective immediately.
Okay.
Effective, I move that we approve the appointment of Andrea Ackridge as the temporary treasurer collector per Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 40, effective immediately.
Second still.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. E?
I move that we accept and place the following articles in the 2024 annual town meeting warrant. Town officers and committees, reports of officers and committees, elected officials' salaries, lease purchase agreements, defray library expenses, promote the town of Harwich, herring fisheries.
Can you hold off on the last one?
Thank you.
Can you
Just
wait?
did.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on any of those articles? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Want to make the motion on this one now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Move that we vote to accept and place the following article in the 2024 annual town meeting warrant. Water Infrastructure Investment Fund, also known as WIF.
I'll second only for discussion.
Moved and seconded. Don?
Yeah, I mean, any way you cut this is going to be either a tax rise or it's going to take something out of a pool or CPC. Now, I get that we paid off the debt for the land bank, and that's all well and good, but we haven't had that discussion, and I feel really uncomfortable putting an article in where we haven't identified the funding source for it, and there's been zero public discussion about how we're going to fund that article.
Michael? Oh,
I apologize.
yeah.
The act that you just took under item B, I will refer to the memo that's in the packet that informs that. I'd asked in the memo if you could hold off completely on the discussion on the WIF.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Did you second that?
I Sure did, and I will remove my second.
And I will remove my motion.
All right, so we'll,
And just because it's in the packet, Joe, I know you were gonna make some calls on that. Probably premature to think that we're there.
So if I may, beyond the, well, I can update. To the questions that were brought up before, the answer is yes. The language that was earlier offered has to be done all at once. So you would have to imagine a funding source, so to speak. The question that has arisen is that within that statute, it then requires the vote of the town. And I believe if you were to add this to the warrant for May, it requires a ballot question to go in November. And I'm not prepared to recommend that yet. I'd like to vet that and get it back to you
right,
as soon as next week if possible.
And we also learned, Julie, if I may, sorry.
sure, go ahead.
We also learned that on Saturday that there is no harm in waiting one more year on this because they're not going to need the money. So
Correct.
due to the lack of education and answers, we might just hold on this until next year.
Correct, absolutely.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will go to the update on the 2024 annual town meeting articles, for Queen Anne Road parcels.
So the update would be that, as you may know, there's several steps that are taking place in anticipation of the articles. So you have, as was previously mentioned, you have the action of real estate and open space asking that these 3 parcels as identified eventually be voted at the annual town meeting to be conveyed. In the meantime, they must be declared as surplus property, so I've directed staff, and we're actively reaching out as required under 30B to various boards, committees, and departments, and we're collecting what we expect to be a series of, no, we don't need it. And then the board could either, I think we're targeting March 25th for you to declare those parcels as surplus, but you will have the articles themselves next week. So the articles could be placed once they're written. Council has written them, I just haven't reviewed them yet. And then ahead of town meeting, you will actively vote, I presume, to declare them surplus. And that's the last thing you need to do before town meeting takes action.
Thank you, Joe.
It's great news.
So there's our discussion on that. Discussion on Community Preservation Committee articles for 2024 annual town meeting.
So as you may recall, I had thought that they would be available this evening, working with the Community Preservation Committee. They had some language corrections, so rather than rush it, that'll come before you next week as well.
Great, thank you.
And then, of course, you've heard about item E on the need for a charter article. At the time that we were going to press on the agenda, we didn't know the specifics. So you can see the memorandum that I've put in the packet. And again, as was articulated during your joint meeting, there were 5 specific sections of charter, they being Chapter 3, Section 1, Clause 2, Chapter 4, Section 4, Clause 2, Chapter 8, Section 1, Clause 1, Chapter 9, Section 2, Clause 4, and Chapter 9, Section 3, Clause 3. A fairly straightforward article, but in fact does need to be corrected by town meeting action and then by the voters presumably in May of 2025.
Okay. All right,
So if I could specifically, however, was if the board has no objection, or if you want to do specifically direct the creation of those, I'll do that. I can certainly do that by consensus from the board as well. It's whatever you prefer.
are all board members in favor of doing that? Yeah. 4-0. I know it wasn't a vote, I'm just letting you know.
And I'll
We're all
just
in
indicate
favor.
consensus.
Thank you. And then we have approved revised use facility form as recommended by the Director of Recreation, and Eric is ill, so he's not here this evening. And so, Joe, we can all just talk about the form. I didn't see an issue with Eric's form. Does anyone have any comments on?
If I
his-
may, Madam
Sure,
Chair,
go
just
ahead.
on behalf of our record
Yep.
corrector, who again would have been in attendance if not for an illness related to a party, and we wish speedy recovery for sure. What I would want to draw to your attention is, so you see the use of facility form, which has been updated to reflect nonprofit use only. The second document, which I think can be given out as a standalone, also tends to be the back page of the form. If you see item number 2 under the rules for use of ball fields and parks, there had been language in prior versions that talked about an exemption that the Rec and Youth Commission and department could make to allow for-profit. There's nothing that suggests that. So I recommended the removal of that. And then further, I believe you have in your packet, first, the existing Board of Selectmen policy, so-called, going back to 2001 on townwide facilities use policy, as well and that is a policy that goes back to adoption on March 26, 2001. And then you have a Town of Harwich general fee waiver policy for nonprofit organizations, and that was adopted August 9, 2010. And I included those because you already have your own policies in place. And in reading these, we don't see anything that allows for-profit. So I could suggest that that question answers itself. So I just want to put that out there for your record.
Yeah, and now, just not to combine even more, but to say that this also ties into the revised form I gave you, the revised general fee waiver policy that I was putting to the rest of you to take a look and see what you think about that, because I think it helps take the waiver issue of nonprofits off the table if we say that nonprofits don't have to pay a user fee. So that would mean that automatically, if they were looking for a waiver, it would be for a license or a permit fee.
Can we put that in the packet, though, so the public can see it?
Oh, yeah, I will, this will come back.
Okay,
I just
great.
figured we could talk about it
Yeah,
now
yeah.
with the revision and then bring it back.
Fine.
But let me know if you have any comments on the way. So in other words, the current general fee waiver policy for the public for nonprofit organizations, the only change is in 2 spots. It shall be the general policy of the town of Harwich to reduce or waive a license or permit or fee if there exists a need that is clearly defined and documented by a nonprofit organization, and such reduction or waiver is in the best interest of the town. So you would get rid of, actually, I thought it, you know, and I missed it on this one, so I'm sorry if I've caused more confusion. Waive a license or permit fee and get rid of the user. And then, sorry, because I had done that on an earlier version. And then add nonprofit, or just for clarification, add nonprofit organizations will not be charged a user fee for use of any town-owned property. Just so it's clear that it wasn't omitted.
Is any of that, so,
It's not in your
On-
packet.
no, I get that, that's what you gave me, but related to the request to approve the new facility form, is what you're talking about now relevant in any way on that?
Yes, because Eric omitted the section that talked about waivers, because it's not necessary. If it's only for nonprofits, then you wouldn't need the section that talked about you can apply for a waiver.
Right.
That just would add more confusion
layer,
if you
yeah.
left it on there.
So is the draft fee waiver policy, is that what this is?
Yes.
Okay,
And just to clarify, in that first sentence,
yeah,
it should say, you know, general policy of the town of Harwich to reduce or waive a license or permit fee. Get rid of user. If there exists a need that is clearly defined, blah, blah, blah. And then I was just saying, and maybe it's redundant, but to make it clear that we didn't miss something, because who knows, 20 years from now, if this still stands, somebody might say, well, maybe they just missed user. No, I'm saying clearly down here, nonprofit organizations will not be charged a user fee for use of any town-owned property. And then the only other place it changes it down here. The reduction of a waiver or of a license or permit, and get rid of user again.
That's for every
Nonprofits.
Yeah, but still, there's implications here for the community center.
Well,
I certainly have not seen the, my name is Carolyn Keir. No, I have not seen the document, but
No,
the
I
community
haven't.
center does charge every group and organization, and we have all nonprofit groups and organizations utilizing the building. We charge, not we.
Yeah.
The town charge, not me. It's nothing to see here. I got no money going in my pockets here. So we charge every group and organization, with the exception of a town. The recreation department, the council on aging, they do not pay, but
so this, well, I'm glad we're talking about it, because
Yeah.
this came out of a conversation about waivers, right? And how they, do you ever waive a fee?
I never, if I need a fee waived, I've come before you exactly twice to ask for it. So,
You may
Would-
like on that.
so I would never waive someone's fee. I don't have the authority. I would go through
Yeah.
the town administrator through you, so.
No, and I understand that, because
Okay.
that's what got us here, this
Okay.
conversation.
But if
So-
you do change that, it would certainly impact the amount of revenue I bring in for renting the community center. We
Okay.
currently have about 152 groups utilizing the building, and they're all paying. So
So,
Approximate number?
that's an approximate, I just did in my head.
so this goes back to, because I was saying the same thing about what are the impacts of the waiving of the fees? This is why we're having this conversation. Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Go.
I'd say you're dismissed, but I don't have that authority. A couple of things here. There's a similar situation going on in the cultural center, and I can prove it because I'm $100 lighter than I was last year when we asked for a 501c3 use of the field in front of it. They don't waive anything either, and we didn't. So that's first of all.
I thought it was only 50. I think you're exact.
No, it was 100. I mean, I can tell you exactly in what denominations the bills were. In any event, there's also two things that are headlines here that I don't want to miss. First of all, this policy, I mean, this fellow Howell was part of the original one. It has to be revisited because there's no school department. And in addition to that, I know, because I was there, it was never the intention for anybody to view this as ownership. So, like, the town administrator doesn't own Town Hall, or Sisson Road, or Albro House, but likewise, the Rec and Youth Department doesn't own Brooks Park. And that's a discussion we have to have, because I know one of their members gave me something that he thought was supporting that was theirs and it always had been theirs, because it said for recreational and/or open space purposes. But it was conveyed in town meeting in, I think it was 1903, and it was later brought forward on eminent domain to clear it because apparently there was some title problems. Things never change.
You were a board member then, too, weren't you?
In 1903, yeah. I've been here forever. But the point is, they neither own it by inference because this form exists. It was conveyed to them to have authority to exercise over it by us, number one. And number two, in reading those documents, there's no way other to read them than that they were handed over for general municipal purposes, particularly parks and open space, but it never was actually encumbered like you normally would for a gift that was given to the town for the purpose of recreation in the Parks Department. It didn't read like that.
No, but back to your other point about the fact that, this memo,
It's got to be changed for a couple of reasons, and it's got to be made clear that just because we are delegating a
because you've
jurisdiction
got-
doesn't mean that we're telling them, you now own this area.
but to your point, there's, Brooks Park is under Rec and Youth, so that needs clarification. School department, obviously clarification there about what schools at this point, because it's different.
Yeah.
And 204 doesn't appear on here.
Right.
So, and obviously it wouldn't, it's 2001, so this needs to be revised?
And yet I love it, the old recreation building is conveyed to the authority of the town administrator.
So this needs to be looked at.
As if that's the title.
And then the fee waiver. So back to Carolyn's point, so, you know, we talked about, and Carolyn, our discussion on fee waivers really came out of discussions with rec and all of that. So, you know, maybe it gets revised further to be recreation, you know, nonprofits that are using recreation facility. I don't know how we would really subdivide that, but anyway. Don?
Just to finish the thought, I don't know that any other members have heard this, but I have heard from numerous sources, there have been discussions about a for-profit approaching the town, I suppose that's the Rec Youth Commission, for Brooks Park for this use, and on two levels. Not just the who's got the jurisdiction level, but the original policy, the town administrator is right, doesn't say anything at all about for-profits. It's always been for not-for-profits. And just want to send a message that, hold on.
That's G, I think, right? That's our next item.
Yeah, again, just hold
Sure, I
on.
get
Everything
it.
should just hold on, because we never intended this to bleed out into, you know, various organizations just running on their own.
But so to Michael's earlier point about how does this play in, so F and G, they are separate, but they are intertwined, right? And then really there's a C to be, well, I guess a
G2.
G2. There's the memo. There's this memo from
Yeah.
2001 that needs to be revised too, so.
Boy, we
so
just made a lot of work for
I
ourselves.
know. So there's three different things that play in here. And then the other question of, if we're looking to try to address because to Carolyn's point, she doesn't waive fees very often, be a different circumstance, but with rec and with that conversation. So I guess the question is, let's look at these documents and figure out, at least revising them, right? And decide, do we want to waive the fees or not? And do we want to make it specific to rec? I don't know, but I'm just trying to get somewhere on that discussion. Michael?
We all know how I feel about fees.
No, tell us.
So I'm absolutely not a fan and couldn't support the change in the policy on fee waivers. I think all fee waivers should be done, as Carolyn pointed out, she's done too, should be done by the local licensing authority. And it really is not a lot, but I have watched Rec and Youth over the years and what they approve for fee waivers, and I think it really warrants a larger discussion. There's a cost to using all of this stuff. You mentioned nonprofits. Some of the most profitable businesses are nonprofits. There's so much staff involved, there's so much payment involved, and I see this in every other walk of life. They pay their fees. And there's no reason at all that anyone could justify to me, without coming before us and pleading their case on why they need the fee adjustment, that we should just blanketly be saying, if you're a nonprofit, use our fields, use whatever you want for free, we're not gonna charge you.
So
There's a
just
cost to this,
A
so.
follow-up on that, just to share, is that I did call and speak with Chatham, and Chatham doesn't charge nonprofits. I believe Yarmouth and Dennis, but I'd have to confirm that, that they don't charge a user fee for nonprofits or, I think, residents in Chatham, but I'll follow up on that.
Clearly, we've had some great success in renting 152 programs and everyone paying, and in a lot of cases, when people come before us, except for the one that Don had to pay, two that Don had to
You
pay.
made me pay the second one.
We generally don't vote unanimously, at least, to waive those fees. So I think we should be leaving this policy alone. The bigger thing that I see is the use policy only to nonprofits. Don, do you know if the Cape Verdean Festival is a 501c3? They are? Well, I know the other huge one that's at town up there, Pugfest, is not a 501c3.
Yeah, it is. Family
Yeah?
Pantry.
Okay, so
They
we-
donate every year to the Family Pantry, and,
Okay.
yes,
No,
sir.
Lamar is a
I just don't wanna
501c3.
I don't want to preclude local events, but the craft fair one, I think this board needs to send a message to, through the town administrator, to the rec department, because that's come up with several residents. And if they're voting on those dates now, that's unfair to the vendor, it's unfair to the town, and it's a violation of our use policy.
Not to mention our own charitables like the Cranberry Festival.
The system that's in place on fee waivers, other than the fact that rec is just doing their own, and they're not supposed to be, and I think that we've already flushed that out, the system that's in place works.
Yeah, there's confusion on that, though, because, sorry, go ahead.
With regard to the prospective use of Brooks Park, after I met with the rec director, we went over the form and the incorrect language that was there. He's already conveyed to that group that the town will not be looking for that application to come forward because it's not eligible. Some have asked before, though, how is it that there are some profit enterprises that are allowed to operate in the town? And the short answer is, everything you've talked about with regard to fees ties back to departments and programs. We build all of that guided by Emerson College v. City of Boston. We take all that into consideration. When there are profit groups operating, I believe in every instance, they're operating under license agreements that the town did through the select board through 30B, so that's a completely different animal. So theoretically, if any private organization or profit organization, excuse me, I gotta say it that way, wants to use town assets, the only way they should be entertained is if the board was looking for that sort of arrangement, and it would be a license agreement.
And
Thank you for that clarification.
just to follow up on that, though, the further confusion with this fee waiver policy, so even if we leave it alone, we do need to clarify it, because this whole section says, such a waiver of reduction of a fee will be determined on a case-by-case basis by written request to the particular department, commission, or board, the planning board, Board of Health, Conservation Commission, Rec and Youth Commission, Waterways Commission, Library Trustees, Facilities Committee, and Board of Water Commissioners may act to reduce or waive fees under a specific policy adopted by these boards and commissions that is consistent with this general fee waiver policy. So whichever way we revise it, it needs to be revised, at least in that capacity.
Is there a general policy on that paragraph that you just wrote? Are there general policies?
In the existing, correct.
And this,
I have not queried the departments or to know if they or related boards have policies.
Okay.
and this is from 2010.
The only,
So,
Don? Oh.
thank you, Madam Chair. The only one that I know that has existing policy is the Board of Health, because they do things like the VNA clinic. I mean, so they have a policy about how they're approaching waiving fees, and they have some state authority, too, to be able to pull that off, because it comes baked in the cake from their Mass General Law. But that's strange. I mean, the planning board,
Yeah.
where would they come off reducing a fee from anybody?
Well, thank you. Yeah, and since I've sat here, this has been the reoccurrent, and it seems like the more this board talks about it, the more confusing it gets.
Right.
I think we should start at the top with determining, I'm torn by this, because I don't want to add more stuff to the select board's agenda. But I think we have to determine who is going to be the sole arbiter of fee waivers.
Right.
And I don't know if that's even on the table or something for bigger discussion, but when I read that, it seems to just allow multiple departments.
that's why we have to make it clear that it doesn't matter who starts with the, receiving the request. Ultimately, we reserve the right to accept or reject any fee waiver because they're under our jurisdiction, all of them.
But when you say we reserve the right, that would mean that it actually gets to us.
I don't think so. But if there was some controversy where they were waiving things, and it was a massive amount of money, like to Michael's point, some of these things have a fairly hefty
Sure.
use. I mean, the senior softball league using the White House field. I mean, they don't just walk on and walk off and nothing happens. I mean, there's ground crews.
But they donate to the field.
Maybe, but that's part of the overall discussion, is like, who has the authority to do that?
Yeah. So
Bigger
I think,
discussion.
but to your point, we have like 3 documents we need to talk about and revise. And if that's, update this memo to make it accurate, update this 2001 townwide facilities use policy, because all of it's outdated. So we should, that'll be another item, maybe for the summer.
Well, should someone, sorry, Madam Chair, but should someone jump on that and begin cleaning it up? 'Cause if
I'll
so, I
start
nominate
because,
Michael.
I could take a shot at the jurisdiction one,
all right,
Yeah, let's cut it up. and try to-
50-year-old one.
that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, take,
I don't want to do it.
I know you don't. That's why I nominated
I don't
you.
want it
I don't want to do it.
So in the meantime, because Julie, you did mention summer, and I think we probably have enough work till summer. In the meantime, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, I guess it's a board decision, not a Joe decision, but shouldn't the board be putting a message out that we're doing all fee waivers? Sounds like we're doing them anyway.
I think that's what I was trying to say. We reserve the right to accept or reject all fee waivers.
but
I'm
he
saying
just
the
asked.
departments have, sorry, Madam.
No, go ahead. What?
I was saying the departments have to know to bring it to us.
That's
'Cause
what I'm getting.
if they're doing it at their meetings, and we never hear of it.
Totally agree.
But that goes back to this,
I
right?
understand.
So the other thing about it that we need to be cognizant of is the fact that in doing that, and if we choose to do that, that we're making, and again, it probably doesn't really go to you, Carolyn, and I don't know who else that I'm trying to think of on a broader, but with rec, when they're coming to rec, that means then if they want to apply for a fee waiver, that's another meeting that they have to come to, or another step, even if they don't come, if rec brings it or sends it.
Might discourage fee waiver requests.
Just, it adds to the.
Yeah, but it gives a
the timeframe.
context. If we take action, it'll be based on a recommendation from that committee.
So I will, you're gonna do the memo from 2001.
Yeah, that's pretty easy, but Michael's got a really good point, and ultimately, Jeff, we could take the action, and it doesn't bother me at all that they have to go through somebody, because we often vote on things upon the recommendation of somebody.
Understood.
Because we don't
My
have
only
time,
point
we
was
don't have
that
time to delve
Has
into
to
all
get
of
to
that.
us.
But back to Eric's form, we can approve Eric's form, because,
Yeah, I think he did a heck of a job with that.
so let's
Clears
give,
up that one point for sure, is there are no for-profits that we're doing this for.
so actually, though, when I say let's approve Eric's form, Joe, back to the revision that Eric made on his form, does he need to add the language back in now about the waivers? Because if we're not gonna make that change,
Yes.
he needs to add that
think so.
line back in.
So, on the rules for use of ball fields and parks, the language on waivers read exception. Waivers can be granted to for-profit.
Oh,
There's nothing in that about exception being made for not-for-profit,
okay.
because they were relying on the 2010 policy. So I do think you can adopt the use of facility form and related rules this evening
Okay,
as presented, and I would recommend the same.
all right.
We could always unadopt it at a future meeting.
I have both forms, I can't
Adjourning
find them.
yourself.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not
I
yet.
just want to make sure that the message
Motion,
comes
Jeff?
out.
What?
I just want to make sure that the message comes out that we do actually have that authority, and everybody else is using our authority.
I move that we accept the Town of Harwich Recreation's Department use of facility form as presented in the packet.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Okay, so,
Geez, been
all right. Go past G, we already talked about that as well. Fee waiver. Approve the 2024, I'm leaving that to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we approve a 2024 annual Class 4 auto repair license renewal for A and G Accident Repair, Inc., DBA Cranberry Collision, 161 Queen Anne Road. I also,
Second.
okay.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Never know how you people want it. I move that we approve a special permit application for a one-day entertainment and one-day wines and malt permit, Sativa, 517 Route 28. Event to be held at 517 Route 28 outside in the parking lot, May 25th, 2024, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. with live recorded music with amplification.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
I move that we approve the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust Community Preservation Act Grant Agreement.
Second for discussion.
Michael?
My discussion is, this shouldn't be for us to sign. We don't have anything to do with Housing Trust.
We're not signing it. Joe's signing it.
So,
Correct?
my understanding on that is it's a community preservation grant
Oh, sorry.
to the Affordable Housing Trust, and the CPC insists
Yeah.
that the town, you all, sign it, and then the trust signs it.
Sorry for that miscommunication. At the trust meeting, that Dave Nixon got up and had said exactly that. Not giving you the money unless you sign this, because this is what the state requires us to do. Don? There's some.
Yeah, I can refer you back to the Declaration of Trust. The trust itself
In here.
was a document that, in order to change the document, it would require the trust members and us to agree to that. But having agreed to it, it's filed in the Registry of Deeds. They are a fiduciary. We feed them members. We do not control their activities. They're not part of they're not part of the town government in the same way the committees are. They're just not. They can spend money, they can receive gifts, they can do all sorts of things. The select board has absolutely no and I'm not even sure that you could pull back the money without a town meeting action. So this thing is kind of wrong in so many directions. I just can't support it. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not supported by law.
Well, I can say that, having sat at that, which was my, I think, second board meeting, there was, I think Bob Spencer and Brendan understood some of the logistics in the sense of why it could be cleaner, but at the same token, the chairman of CPC, Dave Nixon, indicated needed to be signed in order to transfer the money.
Trust has never had us on the board level sign any of this.
So if I,
Go ahead, Joe, sorry.
if I heard the discussion correctly, the document in front of you with signatures for the select board has already been signed by the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust.
Right.
And for whatever reason, they had me sign it as administrator. So the Community Preservation Committee is arguing that for the trust to get their money,
Right.
the two parties, the town, through you folks as select board, and the recipient, the trust, have to sign this document. So the opening paragraph says, this grant agreement is made by and between the town of Harwich, a municipal corporation acting by and through its select board, and the grantee being the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust. So it's not that the select board's being asked to act on behalf of the trust.
Right.
On the contrary, you're being asked to act on behalf of the town to get enter into this grant agreement. So I would recommend signatures, but if I may, I disagree for a different reason. I read this as essentially the town of Harwich, acting through its town meeting, approved an application through the Community Preservation Committee, and the select board is now signing an agreement with the town of Harwich, acting through the trust. So the town of Harwich is agreeing with an agreement for the town of Harwich.
I don't agree with the agreement.
In any event, you're being asked to sign this. The trust has already signed it, and
Right.
I've already signed it.
Don?
I still have to point out that the trust every year is obligated to present a financial position, a balance sheet, if you will. That money is never in possession of the town under our jurisdiction. It's always in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and the only people that can disperse from that are the Affordable Housing trustees.
So if I understand correctly, what CPC is saying is for the trust to even get the money released from the town of Harwich, only the select board can grant the release of those funds by that agreement so that the trust can get those funds and take over their fiduciary.
If it's about the release of funds, yeah, but I read it the
That's-
other way around. I read it that, if you don't fulfill the 3-year requirement, you're gonna have to pay us back, and you signed this. And I don't see that we have any wherewithal to do that. It's not our money. We can't tell them, you better give the money back.
Well,
I'm not trying to hold anything up. I would love to see the language from the state that says that they wouldn't do that. I read it the same way you read it. And I completely disagree with the language, more importantly, in the grant agreement, right? So if we get beyond this, you have to sign it, even though I don't think I should. If we don't spend the money, if we don't start spending the money in X amount of days, and if we don't spend the money in 3 years, that goes against what we're trying to do. We're building, it's a fiduciary trust, we want to build some interest money, we want to make sure we do some projects that make sense, right? So what's the guarantee that we're going to spend that $500,000 in 3 years? And not just keep the money until we have a project worth, I mean, I would think that CPC and the Housing Trust would feel the same, that we should be getting double the money, in my opinion, but
One other thing.
how do we guarantee that we're gonna spend it
so,
in writing?
hold on, let me go to Joe. Joe?
So another example that I would use is, every year, the town of Harwich, through our many departments, are applicants for CPC funds, and they're recipients for CPC funds. So when the chair of CPC and I discussed this several years ago, I told him I would not sign any document that would then go to the select board that says the select board now has this grant agreement with, say, the recreation department or the cemetery department or any other, because the town should not be entering into agreements with itself. These grant agreements, as I under the statute that relates to Community Preservation Act, are when the town, acting through the select board, grants funds to non-town agencies. And they are the ones that are placed under the burden of, give us these updates, and if you do not spend the money, then we may go after the funds again. But that's separate and distinct from the town going after itself, and I believe Board Member Howell has said it. The Affordable Housing Trust of Harwich is a political subset, or is a subset of the political subdivision known as the town of Harwich.
Yep.
But if it gets them the money, sign on the dotted line.
There's one more thing to this.
Go ahead, Don. To go a little bit further, because, I mean, I was involved with this for a lot of years, I got to say, the information they're acting off of, and it makes me a little uncomfortable, they are not a government entity. That CPC organization up near Boston, that is close to a PAC. It has a board of directors who are actually made up of a constellation of communities that disperse funds and actual stakeholders who provide services to it. If I were looking to see what the state mandates under that law, I'd be looking for a legal opinion about what Mass General Law says, not about what they say. Just a thought.
Okay, so I guess ultimately, back to the question of the legality, right? So can we get some sort of weigh-in on whether or not we're required to sign this to put the chair of CPC at ease as to why, and I know the answer to that, because I was at the meeting, and he said, if you don't sign this, you're not
Yeah,
getting the
great,
money.
but what's the statutory
So-
authority for saying that?
So, that's what I'm asking. I'm just telling you what I know the net result will be, so. Could,
Would the board like me to work on this matter further?
yes, please.
Sounds like a great idea.
Don't want to hold anything up, but at the same token, we need some clarification.
Well, and I think, at some point, maybe a meeting with CPC, I'd like to get into the mindset a little bit and the understanding of the fiduciary trust and what we're trying to do. And there is no guarantee that we're gonna start in X amount of days.
No.
There is no guarantee that we're gonna finish in X amount of days.
So I think we should
It
have.
shouldn't be.
No, but to your point, I think we should have that info legally.
Right.
And then have that conversation.
And I get that they see other organizations within the town sitting on money, and it doesn't look like anything's happening. It's like, what the hell? You promised us you were gonna do this, you haven't even started, and now it's 2 or 3 years in. I totally get that, and they have every right to ask that question.
but not of a fiduciary trust. I don't understand how they're doing that.
Well, then I'll wait till you take your second.
I remove my second.
I remove my motion.
And I remove myself.
Phenomenal.
All right,
Progress.
so we'll bring that back. Contracts. Joe?
So this one, I would ask that there be a motion to approve. As you know, the town is engaged in the municipal separate storm sewer system, or MS4 general permit. We have worked with Woodward and Curran, and we're looking for them to continue to do this work. Woodard and Curran essentially keeps the town in compliance with both the Mass DEP requirements on stormwater systems as well as the EPA.
I move that we approve a contract with Woodward and Curran, Inc. in the amount of $93,500 for MS4 Stormwater Year 6 permit compliance.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
I seconded that, Joe.
Yeah, he did.
All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
So when it all falls apart, Jeff.
Town administrators report?
Thank you. So I made reference earlier to the contract that I was able to execute with Eric A. Kincher of CPA LLC. So to give you the particulars, as I mentioned on the Saturday budget workshop, there is a there is an exempt contract because we're relying predominantly on Eric A. Kincher of CPA LLC to continue to provide training for staff in the Treasurer Collector's Office. As you know, we've had obviously turnover. We have some great folks in there that are newer. And as part of this, it allows a staff member, Ms. Ackridge, as you appointed earlier, to also be recognized as our Treasurer Collector. So the total for this contract is $48,000, and it covers the period March 1st through June 30, 2024. We are relying upon funds available from the vacant Treasurer Collector salary line.
Thank you, Joe.
And then secondly, something I almost announced last week, which would have been incorrect, but very pleased to finally be able to announce that the town's first ever assistant wastewater superintendent has been hired. So Jonathan Long, who comes to us from the town of Chatham, meaning that's where he lives, he comes directly to us from Weston and Sampson, and he's working in Chatham. So Mr. Long has a great background in this role, and I know everybody can now breathe a sigh of relief. Jonathan is going to be joining us. We expect him to start March 28th, so I'm excited about that.
Oh, that's great.
And then, last but not least, I executed another 30B contract. This is one that Assistant Town Administrator Megan Eldridge has been working directly with Bob Doan of the Historic District Historical Commission on, and it's a contract for Marquee Architecture LLC. What they are doing is helping the Historic District Historical Commission with their ongoing historic property inventory. So the contract was awarded to Marquee Architecture LLC. They were the most responsive and responsible to the request for proposals. The contract comes in at $33,800, which is under the amount that was available through the Article 31 of the 2020 Annual Town Meeting. So great to have them on board and great to have them under budget. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Joe. Select Board report. Don?
Nothing.
Jeff?
I'll just say, again, good luck to the girls varsity ice hockey and the boys basketball team at Monomoy High moving forward into the next round, so good luck to them.
I have nothing.
I have nothing.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.